I shuffled my sister's deck one last time before wrapping the cards in their silk cloth. The vendor stalls around me had already closed, leaving only the hum of distant traffic and the patter of October rain on canvas awnings. Portland's night market always ran late on Fridays, but by 10:30, most people had scattered to bars or homes, leaving me to pack up alone. The velvet cloth covering my small table was damp at the edges, despite the tarp overhead. I folded it carefully, running my fingers over the embroidered moons and stars Lily had sewn 3 years ago, back when she was still here to tease me about believing in anything at all. The cards had been hers first, a gift from our grandmother before she passed. Now they were mine, my inheritance, my burden, my only connection to a twin I'd never stop missing. "Excuse me." The voice cut through the rainfall like a blade through silk. Deep, accented. "Are you still reading tonight?" I looked up from packing my leather bag. A man stood at the edge of my booth, water dripping from the shoulders of a charcoal suit that probably had a designer label I'd never heard of. Tall, maybe 6'3", with dark hair slicked back from a face all sharp angles and shadows. His eyes caught the string lights still glowing overhead. Dark brown, almost black in this light, with an intensity that made me want to step back. "I'm closed," I said, keeping my voice steady. 26 years old, and I still got nervous around certain types of men. The kind who looked at you like they could see straight through to your bones. "There's another tarot reader who works Saturdays, or I can give you my card for an appointment next week. I don't have until next week." He stepped under the tarp, out of the rain. Up close, I could see the details my instincts had already catalogued. The cut of his jaw, a thin scar running along the right side, near his ear, hands that looked like they could break things, or build them. "I need a reading tonight. I'll pay double your rate." Something in his tone suggested this wasn't a request I should refuse. Not out of fear, exactly, but out of that sixth sense Lily always said I had. The one that whispered when something important was about to happen. $100, I heard myself say. My normal rate was $50 for a half-hour reading. Cash. He pulled out a money clip without hesitation. The bills were crisp, probably fresh from an ATM. He counted out 500s and set them on my damp table. "That's 500, I said, not touching the money. "I know." His gaze never left mine. "For your time and your discretion." I should have told him to leave. Should have packed up my cards and gone home to my cramped apartment where the heater barely worked, and the upstairs neighbor played heavy metal at 2 a.m. Instead, I unfolded my velvet cloth and spread it across the table again. "Sit." He took the folding chair across from me, moving with a grace that didn't match his size. I unwrapped Lily's cards, feeling their familiar weight in my palms. 3 years of readings and they still smelled like her perfume. Lavender and vanilla. Memory and grief. "What's your question?" I asked, beginning to shuffle. "I don't have a question." He leaned back, completely at ease despite the rain now drumming harder against the tarp. "I want to know what you see." That wasn't how tarot worked, but I'd learned not to argue with clients who paid this well. I shuffled until the cards felt ready, then spread them in a Celtic cross layout. The pattern Lily had taught me on our 16th birthday, back when we'd practiced on each other and laughed at the dramatic predictions. I flipped the first card. The Lovers. Present situation. Second card. The Tower, reversed. Recent past. Third card. The Ten of Swords. What lies beneath. My hand slowed as I turned over the fourth card. Death. Not always literal, but in this spread, surrounded by these cards, it felt heavy. Final. Interesting start, he murmured. I ignored him, revealing the fifth card. The Seven of Cups. Possible future. Sixth card. The Two of Cups. Near future. Seventh card. The Devil. How he sees himself. Eighth card. Justice. How others see him. Ninth card. The Moon. Hopes and fears. I paused before the final card, my fingers hovering over it. The Outcome card. The one that would tie everything together or blow it all apart. Go ahead, he said softly. I can handle it. I flipped it. The Ace of Cups. For a long moment, I just stared at the spread. Then I looked up at him, this stranger with his expensive suit and dangerous eyes. And something in my chest tightened. You're in the middle of a war, I said slowly, interpreting what the cards showed me. The tower in your past means something you built came crashing down. Violently. You're still dealing with the betrayal that caused it. I gestured to the Ten of Swords. Someone close to you. Multiple someones. He didn't confirm or deny, just watched me with that unnerving stillness. Death here doesn't mean you're going to die, I continued, though I wasn't entirely sure I believed that. It means transformation. An ending that leads to a beginning. But the devil suggests you're trapped in a cycle of power and control. You think you're in charge, but something has its claws in you. And the rest? His voice gave nothing away. I touched the Two of Cups, then the Lovers. Love, soon, maybe already happening without you realizing it. The Two of Cups in your near future, and the Lovers in your present, both pointing to the same thing. A connection, a partnership. The Ace of Cups as your outcome confirms it. New emotions, a new beginning, something pure in the middle of all this darkness. The rain had picked up, drowning out the city sounds. We were alone in a bubble of lamplight and storm, and I realized my heart was racing. You're going to fall in love, I said, meeting those dark eyes. Soon, maybe tonight. He was quiet for a long moment. Then his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, but held too much knowledge to be anything else. I know. The way he said it sent ice down my spine. Not threatening, just certain, like he'd already seen this future and accepted it. The moon card, I pressed on, needing to finish the reading and get away from him. Shows your fear. You're afraid of illusion, of not seeing clearly, of being deceived again. And justice means the world sees you as someone who demands balance. An eye for an eye. You have power, but you use it according to your own code. Very perceptive. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket with one hand. Your name? Hannah. I didn't know why I answered. Hannah Evans. Hannah Evans. He repeated it like he was committing it to memory. I'm Mateo. Just a first name. No last name offered. I should have pressed, but something told me I didn't want to know more than he was willing to share. He reached out suddenly, and I flinched before realizing he was just offering his hand. I took it, and the moment our palms touched, that electric sensation I'd been fighting all reading crashed through me like lightning. His skin was warm, slightly rough, and for 3 heartbeats we just stood there, hands clasped, rain falling around us. Thank you, Hannah Evans. He released my hand and stepped back into the rain. I'll remember this. Then he was gone, walking toward the parking area where I could now see 2 black SUVs idling with their lights off. He climbed into the back of one, and both vehicles pulled away smoothly, like sharks gliding through dark water. I stood alone under my tarp, hand still tingling where he'd touched me, and looked down at the cards spread across my table. The reading had been clear. Danger, love, transformation, choice. I gathered the cards quickly, wrapping them in their cloth and tucking them carefully into my leather bag along with the $500 bills. My hands shook slightly as I collapsed my table and folded my chair. The other vendors were long gone. The night market security guard was probably making his rounds on the far side of the lot. I hurried to the rideshare pickup area, my bag clutched tight against my chest. The cards inside felt heavier than usual, like they'd absorbed something from that reading. From him. A silver Toyota pulled up, and I checked the license plate against my app before climbing into the back seat. The driver was listening to jazz, barely glancing at me in the rearview mirror as he pulled into traffic. I leaned my head against the cold window, watching Portland's lights blur past through rain-streaked glass. My apartment was only 15 minutes away, in a neighborhood that was trying hard to gentrify, but hadn't quite made it yet. Affordable rent for a 26-year-old tarot reader who sometimes wondered if she'd made the right choice, dropping out of art school after Lily died. The cards had been right about one thing tonight. Something had changed. I could feel it in my bones. That shift that meant life was about to get complicated. I just didn't know how complicated until Monday morning, when everything I thought I understood about safety and danger would shatter like glass. The weekend crawled by in a haze of regret and curiosity. I'd spent Saturday morning tracking down my rideshare driver from Friday night, who'd found my jacket wedged between the back seat cushions. He met me at a gas station to return it, clearly annoyed but accepting the $20 tip I pressed into his hand. By Monday morning, I'd almost convinced myself to forget about the man with dark eyes and dangerous certainty. Almost. The Bridgetown Cafe sat 3 blocks from my apartment, tucked between a vintage record store and a yoga studio that smelled perpetually of sandalwood. I'd claimed my usual corner table by 11, laptop open, nursing a cappuccino while pretending to update my website. In reality, I was scrolling through apartment listings, trying to figure out how to afford anything better than my current situation without working 3 readings a day. The cafe was one of those neutral spaces where everyone coexisted peacefully. Artists working on portfolios, students cramming for exams, business people having informal meetings. The owner, a 60-year-old woman named Patricia, had a strict policy about respecting others' space and privacy. No loud phone calls, no aggressive sales pitches, just coffee and courtesy. That's probably why they chose it. The bell above the door chimed at 11:15. 4 men walked in, and every instinct I'd inherited from years of reading people went on high alert. They moved with purpose, scanning the room before settling at a table near the window. Business casual clothing that somehow looked more dangerous than protective. One was older, maybe early 40s, with silver threading through dark hair. The others were younger, built like they spent serious time in a gym. And then he walked in. Matteo. My breath caught. I ducked behind my laptop screen, cursing myself for choosing this cafe, this day, this table with a direct line of sight to where they were sitting. He wore a different suit today, charcoal gray instead of black, and he carried himself with that same controlled grace that had made me nervous on Friday night. He didn't see me, or if he did, he didn't acknowledge it. I should have left, should have closed my laptop, grabbed my bag, and walked out before whatever was about to happen unfolded. But I was frozen, watching as they ordered espressos and bent their heads together in conversation. The silver-haired man was talking, gesturing occasionally toward what looked like a map spread across their table. Matteo listened, his expression unreadable. One of the younger men kept checking his phone, thumb scrolling with increasing frequency. Something about his body language felt wrong, twitchy, nervous in a way that didn't match the other's calm. I couldn't hear their words from where I sat, but I caught fragments. Territory. Expansion. The name of a street I recognized from the industrial district. References to people I didn't know, but whose names carried weight in the way they were spoken. Then the nervous one stood abruptly, phone still in his hand. He muttered something about taking a call, and headed toward the bathroom. Matteo watched him go, and for just a moment, suspicion flickered across his face. That's when I heard it. The screech of tires outside, car doors slamming. The cafe's front window exploded inward. Glass, everywhere. Screaming. The sharp crack of gunfire so loud it turned the world into cotton and chaos. I hit the floor without thinking, my laptop clattering off the table. Someone nearby was crying. Patricia was shouting for everyone to get down. I looked up through the haze of confusion and saw Matteo on his feet, the table overturned, his men moving with military precision to form a protective barrier. More gunshots. Wood splintering. The espresso machine behind the counter erupted in a shower of steam and metal. Then Matteo's eyes found mine across the ruined cafe, and everything stopped. He crossed the space in 3 strides, dropping beside me just as another volley of bullets tore through what remained of the window. His body covered mine, one arm coming around my shoulders, the other braced against the floor. He smelled like expensive cologne and adrenaline. "Don't move," he said against my ear, voice steady despite the hell breaking loose around us. I felt the impact of something hitting my right arm. Sharp. Burning. When I looked down, blood was spreading across the cream-colored sweater I'd worn to feel professional. A long shard of glass protruded from just below my elbow, dark red already soaking into the fabric. "You're hit." Matteo pulled back slightly, assessing the damage with a clinical eye that suggested he'd seen worse. Much worse. "I'm fine." My voice shook, betraying the lie. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it started. I heard engines roaring, tires squealing as vehicles sped away. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Around us, the cafe looked like a war zone. Shattered glass covered every surface. Bullet holes peppered the walls. Patricia crouched behind the counter, Phone pressed to her ear, giving someone our address. Mateo helped me sit up, his hands surprisingly gentle as they steadied me. The silver-haired man appeared at his side, speaking rapid fire in what might have been Italian. Mateo responded in the same language, then switched to English. Franco, get the car. Now, bring her with us. Wait, what? I tried to pull away, but the movement sent fire shooting up my arm. I'm not going anywhere with you. I need an ambulance. The police are coming. The police can't help you. Mateo's eyes locked onto mine, and I saw something there that terrified me more than the bullets had. You saw their faces, the shooters. How many were there? My mind replayed those awful seconds. 3 men, Asian features, matching black jackets. One had a tattoo on his neck, a symbol I didn't recognize. I'd seen them clearly through the window before it exploded. 3, I whispered. 3 witnesses they'll need to eliminate. Mateo stood, pulling me up with him. Franco, the car. I'll handle the rest. My friend, I said suddenly, remembering Gabriella and her shop 2 neighborhoods over. Gabriella Turner. She owns Crystal Visions on Hawthorne. If they know who I am, if they followed me here, Franco. Mateo cut me off with a single word. The silver-haired man nodded and pulled out his phone, already dialing as he headed for the exit. I'm sending 2 men to her location now. Franco called back. She'll be protected. You don't understand, I said, trying to make sense of what was happening through the shock and pain. I don't know anything. I was just having coffee. I didn't hear anything important. You don't need to hear anything. Mateo wrapped an arm around my waist, supporting my weight as he guided me toward the back of the cafe. You were here. You saw them. That's all that matters to the people who just tried to kill me. We emerged into the alley behind the building. A black SUV pulled up, identical to the ones I'd seen Friday night. Franco held the back door open, his expression grim but controlled. My bag, I said weakly. I left it inside, my cards. I'll have someone retrieve it. Mateo helped me into the vehicle, sliding in beside me. Right now, we need to move. The door slammed shut. The SUV pulled away from the curb as police cars screamed past in the opposite direction. I pressed my uninjured hand against the glass shard still embedded in my arm, trying to slow the bleeding. The world tilted sideways, and I realized I was going into shock. Stay with me, Hannah. Mateo's voice cut through the fog. We're going somewhere safe. A private doctor will treat your arm. But I need you conscious, and I need you to understand what just happened. You're MAFIA, I heard myself say, or something like it. Those men were trying to kill you. And now I'm a witness they'll want dead too. Close. His jaw tightened. Franco, take us to the mountain house. No hospitals, no public records. The cards had predicted this. Love soon, but also death and transformation. A choice that would change everything. I'd just been too naive to understand the reading was about my own future. The private doctor arrived within 20 minutes of our reaching the mansion. I'd spent those minutes pressed against the leather seat, watching pine trees blur past the window while Franco made calls in Italian, and Mateo kept one hand on my uninjured shoulder, anchoring me to consciousness. The house materialized through the trees like something from a dream. Glass and stone in modern angles that somehow belonged in the wilderness. We'd driven maybe 90 minutes northeast of Portland, climbing into the Cascade foothills until civilization became a distant memory. Can you walk? Mateo asked as the SUV stopped in a circular driveway. Yes. I wasn't sure if that was true, but I refused to be carried like some damsel from a Gothic novel. My legs held when I stood, though the world tilted slightly. Inside, the mansion was all clean lines and expensive taste. Hardwood floors, minimalist furniture, art on the walls that probably cost more than my annual income, though I was trying very hard not to think about money right now. Mateo guided me to a room that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley, and a bed large enough for 4 people. The doctor was already waiting. A woman in her 50s with steady hands and an expression that suggested she'd seen much worse than a glass shard embedded in someone's arm. She introduced herself as Dr. Vasquez and got to work immediately, cutting away my ruined sweater and cleaning the wound with efficient movements. 12 stitches, she announced after extracting the glass and examining the laceration. You're lucky. Deeper and you'd have nerve damage. As it is, you'll heal clean if you keep it dry and change the dressing daily. Mateo stood near the window throughout the procedure, close enough to see but far enough to give Dr. Vasquez room to work. His presence was oddly comforting, a solid point in a world that had gone sideways. "The pain medication will make you drowsy," Dr. Vasquez said as she finished bandaging my arm. "Rest is the best thing for shock. I'll leave supplies and check on you tomorrow." After she left, Franco appeared in the doorway. He looked tired but controlled, his silver hair slightly disheveled from the chaos at the cafe. "Your friend is secure," he said, addressing me directly. "2 of our men are stationed outside her shop. She's been informed of the situation and advised to stay inside for the next 48 hours. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. She's all I have left. Her and the cards. Speaking of which, Franco held up my leather bag. Retrieved from the cafe before the police sealed it off. Everything's intact. I took the bag with my good hand, clutching it against my chest. The weight of Lily's cards inside felt like an anchor to sanity. "I need you to understand what happened today," Mateo said once Franco had left. He sat in the chair opposite the bed, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "The organization that attacked us is called the Triad Phoenix Dorada. They're expanding aggressively into Portland, trying to take territory my family has controlled for 60 years. They don't care about rules, about civilians, about anything except power and profit. And I saw their faces. The medication was starting to work, making everything feel slightly distant. So now they want me dead. Yes, no sugarcoating. I appreciated that more than false comfort. You can't go home, not until we resolve this situation, which might take several days." And the practical concerns crashed down on me all at once. My rent is due Friday, 6 days. I was already short before this, and my booth at the night market, that's my income. If I'm not there this weekend, I lose my spot. They have a waiting list. I'll handle it. Mateo's tone brooked no argument. "Your rent will be paid. You'll be compensated for the work you're missing, not as charity," he added, seeing my expression. "As restitution for putting you in danger. You helped me Friday night with that reading. This is my responsibility." I wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling me under. "I don't want to owe you anything. You don't. This is me owing you." He stood, moving toward the door. "Sleep. We'll talk more when you're clearer." But sleep wouldn't come despite the medication. I lay in that enormous bed for hours, watching afternoon light fade to evening, then evening to night. My arm throbbed beneath the bandages. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the cafe window exploding, heard the sharp crack of gunfire. At midnight, I gave up. I pulled on a robe I found in the closet, soft charcoal cashmere that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, and ventured into the mansion. The place was quiet, but not empty. I glimpsed men in dark clothing patrolling the grounds through windows, security cameras in corners. This wasn't just a house. It was a fortress disguised as architectural magazine material. I found the library on the 2nd floor. Books lined 3 walls from floor to ceiling, real books with worn spines that suggested they'd actually been read. A fireplace held glowing embers, casting warm light across leather furniture. And there, in an armchair near the windows, sat Mateo. He looked up when I entered. He'd changed from his suit into dark jeans and a black sweater, somehow more dangerous in casual clothes than he'd been in business attire. "Can't sleep either?" I asked. "Sleep is a luxury I rarely afford." He gestured to the chair beside him. "How's your arm?" "Hurts." I sat, tucking my legs under me, "but I've had worse." "Have you?" The question was gentle, inviting, and maybe it was the medication, or the shock, or the fact that I'd almost died today and nothing seemed to matter anymore. Whatever the reason, I found myself answering honestly. 3 years ago, my twin sister died. Lily. Car accident on I-5. Drunk driver crossed the median at 70 miles an hour. The words came easier than I expected. She died instantly. I was driving, walked away with a broken collarbone and cuts that needed 42 stitches total. The physical pain was nothing compared to losing her. Mateo was silent for a long moment. The cards were hers. She was the real tarot reader. I was the skeptic. But after she died, I couldn't let them go. Couldn't let that last piece of her disappear. I looked down at my bandaged arm. I taught myself to read them. Started doing it professionally a year later. It helps me feel close to her. Like maybe she's still guiding me somehow. Perhaps she is. Mateo's voice held no mockery. I've seen too much of the world to dismiss anything as impossible. What about you? I turned the question back on him. Franco called you boss at the cafe. And you have all this. I gestured around the library. This isn't normal wealth. This is something else. My grandfather came from Naples in 1958 with nothing but a suitcase and stubborn pride. He built an empire through connections, favors, and refusing to bend to anyone. When he died, my father inherited. When my father died 6 years ago, I inherited. I was 28, too young, too unprepared, but there was no one else. No siblings. Only child. My mother died when I was 12. Cancer. His jaw tightened. My father threw himself into work after that. Built the organization bigger, stronger. He taught me everything before a heart attack took him at 56. Left me with 200 families depending on me for their livelihoods, their protection, their futures. That's a heavy weight for someone so young. 34 isn't that young. A ghost of humor crossed his face. But yes, heavy. Every decision I make affects hundreds of lives. Every mistake costs someone their safety. Or worse. We sat in companionable silence, watching embers glow in the fireplace. Outside the windows, stars scattered across the mountain sky, brighter than anything visible in Portland. The reading Friday night, I said eventually. The cards showed me your future. Love, transformation, a choice that would change everything. I thought I was reading for you, but maybe I was reading for myself too. Maybe the cards see more than we realize. Mateo looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt that electric current again, the same one from Friday night when our hands touched. You told me I'd fall in love soon. That night, you said, and you said you already knew. Because I did. His voice dropped lower. The moment you looked up from those cards and met my eyes, I knew. I didn't want to. Didn't plan to. But knowing doesn't stop it from happening. My breath caught. This was insane. I'd known this man for 3 days. He was a criminal. Someone who lived in a world of violence and power plays. But he was also someone who'd covered my body with his when bullets flew. Who'd stayed during my medical treatment. Who spoke about his dead mother with the same grief I felt for Lily. This is crazy, I whispered. Yes, he didn't deny it. But that doesn't make it less true. Somewhere in the mansion, a clock chimed 3 a.m. Tomorrow, or rather today, we'd have to face whatever came next. The triad who wanted me dead, the complications of my life intersecting with his, the impossibility of this connection between us. But for now, in this library with firelight and starlight and shared grief, I let myself sit beside him and believe the cards might have been right about more than I'd realized. Morning light woke me with its insistence, streaming through windows I'd forgotten to cover. My arm throbbed beneath fresh bandages, reminding me that yesterday's nightmare had been real. The cafe, the gunfire, Mateo's body shielding mine, all of it real. I found clothes in the closet that someone had left for me, jeans that fit surprisingly well, and a soft burgundy sweater that didn't aggravate my injury. In the bathroom mirror, I looked like someone who'd survived something. Dark circles under green eyes, hair tangled from restless sleep, a bandage stark white against my skin. Downstairs, I followed the smell of coffee to a kitchen that belonged in a design magazine. Franco stood at the counter, speaking Italian into his phone. He ended the call when he saw me. "Good morning, Miss Evans. Coffee?" His English carried that same slight accent as Mateo's, though his was rougher around the edges. "Please." I accepted the mug he poured, wrapping my good hand around the warmth. "And it's Hannah. Miss Evans makes me feel like I'm in trouble with the school principal." A brief smile crossed his face. "Hannah, then. I have something for you." He retrieved my leather bag from a nearby chair. Retrieved it myself yesterday afternoon. Everything inside is undamaged. Relief flooded through me. I took the bag, immediately checking for the cards. Still wrapped in their silk cloth, still radiating that faint scent of Lily's perfume. My connection to my sister, preserved. Thank you. The words felt inadequate. You didn't have to do that. Matteo made it clear your cards were important. Franco refilled his own coffee. He's currently in a meeting with our security team, reviewing footage from the attack. He'll want to speak with you when he's finished. About what happened at the cafe? Among other things. Franco's expression turned serious. The men who attacked us are from an organization called Triad Phoenix Dorada. They've been expanding aggressively into our territory for the past 6 months. Yesterday was their most brazen move yet. I sipped my coffee, processing this. And because I saw their faces, I'm a liability they need to eliminate. Unfortunately, yes. Which is why you'll remain here under our protection until the situation is resolved. He paused. I spoke with your friend Gabriella this morning. She's safe. Frightened, but safe. My men are maintaining a visible presence around her shop to discourage any approach. The mention of Gabriella tightened something in my chest. She was all I had left besides these cards. If anything happened to her because of me, because I'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time, she won't be harmed, Franco said, reading my expression. Matteo doesn't allow civilians to be targeted. It's one of the codes his father established. Codes in organized crime. The irony wasn't lost on me. That's almost funny. Morality exists everywhere, Hannah. Even in worlds you might think are beyond it. Franco rinsed his mug in the sink. My advice? Don't judge Matteo by the life he was born into. Judge him by the choices he makes within it. After Franco left, I took my coffee to the back terrace. The view was stunning. Pine trees stretched down the mountainside, and in the distance, I could see the valley below. Morning mist still clinging to the lowlands. It was peaceful in a way Portland never was. No traffic sounds, no sirens. Just wind through trees and birds calling to each other. I unwrapped Lily's cards, handling them carefully despite the ache in my arm. The bandage made it awkward, but I managed to shuffle them, letting muscle memory guide my movements. 3 years of daily practice meant my hands knew what to do, even when my mind was elsewhere. What do I need to know? I whispered to the cards, to Lily, to whatever force guided these readings. I laid out a simple 3-card spread. Past, present, future. First card. The Tower. Again. The same card that had appeared in Matteo's reading on Friday night. Destruction. Chaos. Everything falling apart. Second card. The 2 of Swords. Present. A woman blindfolded, holding 2 swords crossed before her. Stalemate. Difficult choice. Refusal to see the truth. Third card. The Lovers. Future. Connection. Partnership. Choice that leads to union. But beneath the Lovers, almost stuck to it, another card had fallen. The 7 of Swords. Deception. Betrayal. Someone working from within. My hands stilled over the spread. The cards were warning me about something specific. Someone close to Matteo, someone in his inner circle, wasn't trustworthy. The attack yesterday hadn't just been about territory expansion. It had been coordinated, planned. Someone had known where they'd be, and when. Interesting reading. I startled, nearly dropping the deck. Matteo stood in the terrace doorway, watching me with those dark eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense. You move too quietly for someone your size, I said, pressing my good hand to my racing heart. Occupational necessity. He joined me at the small table, gesturing to the cards. What do they say? I hesitated. This was his world, his people, his organization. Accusing someone of betrayal based on a tarot reading seemed insane. But the cards had been right about everything else. About love. About danger. About transformation. There's a traitor, I said finally. Someone close to you. The 7 of Swords fell with the Lovers. It means deception happening alongside or because of a connection. And the 2 of Swords in my presence suggests I'm avoiding seeing something clearly. Or maybe you are. Matteo leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Tell me about yesterday. The man at the cafe who left right before the attack. What do you remember about him? I closed my eyes, replaying those moments. Young. Maybe 25. Dark hair. He was checking his phone constantly. More than the others. And when he left to take a call, he looked nervous. Not scared nervous. Guilty nervous. His name is Anthony Lombardi. He's been with our family for 3 years. His father worked for mine. Matteo's jaw tightened. Franco's investigating him now, based on what you said. If Anthony sold us out to the triad, if he's responsible for nearly getting you killed, what will you do to him? I asked quietly. What needs to be done? His tone left no room for misunderstanding. Which is? Exile at minimum. Death if he cost us lives. He met my gaze directly. I won't lie to you about who I am, Hannah. I won't pretend this world has room for mercy when someone betrays the people depending on them for safety. I should have been horrified. Should have demanded he take me home immediately, consequences be damned. But I thought about what Franco had said. Judge him by his choices. And Matteo's choice was to protect the people loyal to him, even if that meant harsh justice for those who weren't. My father taught me 3 rules. Matteo continued. Never involve civilians unless absolutely necessary. Never harm women or children. Never betray family. And never forgive those who do. He gestured to the cards spread between us. Your sister's deck keeps showing you truth. Maybe you should trust it. I do trust it. I gathered the cards carefully, my arm protesting the movement. That's what scares me, because it also showed me the lovers. You and I, somehow connected in all this chaos. Would that be so terrible? Yes. I wrapped the cards in their silk cloth. Because I'm a tarot reader from a cramped apartment who can barely pay rent. And you're a man. He interrupted gently. Not a title. Not an organization. Just someone who saw you Friday night and knew immediately that everything was about to change. The intensity in his voice made my breath catch. This was insane. 3 days. I'd known him for 3 days. But Lily used to say that souls recognize each other instantly. That time was a human construct that didn't matter when it came to real connection. Come with me, Matteo said, standing and offering his hand. There's something I want to show you. I let him lead me through the mansion to a room I hadn't explored yet. His office, clearly. Dark wood desk, leather chairs. But what dominated the space was a wall covered in photographs. Not the glossy kind from magazines. Personal photos. Candid moments captured over years. My grandfather, Matteo said, pointing to an elderly man with fierce eyes and a proud bearing. Giuseppe Ricchetti. He came from nothing and built everything you see around us. Not just wealth. A community. 200 families who depend on us for work, for protection, for justice. The law won't provide them. He moved to another photo. A woman with kind eyes and Matteo's cheekbones. My mother. She died when I was 12. Cancer. My father never recovered. He threw himself into work afterward, teaching me everything about leadership but nothing about balance. Is that why you're different? I asked. Because you saw what it cost him? Maybe. His hand lingered on his father's photo. An older version of himself. Stern, but not cruel. He had rules. The same ones he taught me. But he forgot that rules without humanity become tyranny. I'm trying not to make that mistake. We stood there in his office, surrounded by the history of his family, and I understood something fundamental. Matteo hadn't chosen this life. He'd inherited it. But he was choosing how to live it. That evening, he insisted on changing my bandages himself. Dr. Vasquez having left supplies and instructions. His hands were gentle, careful not to hurt me as he unwrapped the old dressing and cleaned the wound. Healing well, he observed. You'll have a scar, but not a bad one. I have others. I watched his face as he worked. 42 stitches from the accident that killed Lily. This one will just join the collection. Battle scars. He secured the new bandage. Proof you survived. Dinner was on the terrace under string lights and mountain stars. Someone had prepared Italian food that smelled incredible, and Matteo poured wine I'm sure cost more than my monthly grocery budget, though I didn't ask. The air had cooled with sunset, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Tell me about her. Matteo said, Your sister. What was she like? So I did. I told him about Lily's laugh, loud and unrestrained. About how she believed in magic and possibility while I believed in logic and planning. About how she'd bought these tarot cards from a shop in Seattle and taught herself to read them. Then taught me, insisting I had natural intuition I was ignoring. She sounds like she would have liked this. Matteo gestured to the cards I'd brought down with me, now sitting between our wine glasses. The mystery of it. The romance. She would have loved you, I admitted. She always said I needed someone who'd challenge me, who wouldn't let me hide in my fear. Matteo reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. That electric current again, sparking between us. I'm not trying to challenge you, Hannah. I'm just trying to... His phone rang. The sound shattered the moment like glass under a hammer. Matteo's expression darkened as he checked the screen. I have to take this. He answered in Italian, his tone sharp. I watched his face change as whoever was on the other end spoke. Anger, then cold calculation. He ended the call and stood in one fluid motion. One of our warehouses in the industrial district was just hit. Fire. Deliberate. Franco's heading there now, but I need to go personally. Now? It's almost 10 at night, which is exactly when they chose to strike. He was already moving toward the door. Stay here. Don't leave the property. My security team will keep you safe until I return. Matteo, wait. I stood, following him. What if this is what they want? What if they're trying to draw you out into the open? He paused, looking back at me. Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe. That I'd thought of that. It's a possibility I've considered. His hand came up, cupping my face briefly. The touch was warm, grounding. But some things require my presence. This is one of them. Then he was gone, and I was left standing on the terrace with wine going cold and cards that whispered warnings I didn't know how to interpret. The 7 of Swords. Betrayal from within. I looked down at the spread still laid out on the table. The cards hadn't lied yet. And if they were right about a traitor, then Matteo walking into a burning warehouse might be exactly what someone wanted. I couldn't just sit there and wait. Not with the cards spread on the table showing me warnings I'd ignored before. The 7 of Swords. Betrayal from within. And Matteo was driving straight into a situation that felt choreographed. I found one of the security guards patrolling near the terrace. Young, maybe 25, with the same watchful expression they all wore. I need to get to the warehouse, I said. The one that's burning. Where Matteo went. He blinked at me like I'd asked him to fly. Miss Evans, Mr. Ricchetti gave explicit orders that you remain here. If we go as controlled bait. 2 support cars, a fallback route, and counter-surveillance. Your intuition about the 7 of Swords stands. We act on it, but with a plan, and I'm explicitly ignoring them. I crossed my arms, wincing as the movement pulled at my bandaged arm. You can either drive me, or I'll find my own way there. Your choice. 5 minutes later, I was in the back of an SUV with 2 very unhappy security guards who'd apparently decided protecting me meant following me into whatever stupidity I was committing. The drive back down the mountain felt longer than the trip up had been, every turn reminding me this was probably the worst decision I'd made in a series of increasingly poor choices. The warehouse district looked exactly like what it was. Industrial buildings hunched against the night sky, separated by cracked pavement and chain-link fences. Smoke billowed from a structure near the waterfront, orange flames visible through broken windows. Fire trucks had arrived, their lights painting everything in stuttering red and white. I spotted Franco immediately, standing with several men near a black SUV. He saw me approaching, and his expression went from surprise to resignation in the span of a heartbeat. He's going to be very unhappy you're here, Franco said. He'll get over it. I hoped that was true. Where is he? Franco gestured toward the warehouse. Inside. We've secured the perimeter. The fire was deliberately set, but whoever did it is long gone. Or still inside, I said quietly. Waiting. Something in my tone made Franco look at me more carefully. You know something. The cards warned me. Betrayal from within. Someone close to Matteo. I met his eyes. It's Anthony Lombardi, isn't it? The man from the cafe. You've been investigating him. Franco's silence was confirmation. He pulled out his phone, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. Anthony was supposed to be here tonight, setting up security protocols. But his phone's been off for 2 hours, and no one's seen him since this afternoon. That cold certainty settled in my stomach. He's the one who told the triad where Matteo would be. At the cafe. And now this fire is bait. Franco finished my thought, already moving. Stay with the guards. Don't move from this spot. But I was already following him toward the warehouse entrance. My guards had no choice but to come with me, flanking me like reluctant shadows. Inside, the building was a maze of shipping containers and wooden pallets. Smoke hung in the air, acrid and choking. Water from the firefighters' hoses pooled on concrete floors. I heard voices deeper in the warehouse. Matteo's, distinctive even raised in anger. And another voice, younger, defensive, pleading. We rounded a corner and found them. Matteo stood with 3 of his men, surrounding Anthony Lombardi. The young man looked terrified, backed against a shipping container with nowhere to run. Blood trickled from his nose, and his shirt was torn. But he was alive, conscious, talking. I didn't have a choice, Anthony was saying, words tumbling over each other. They had photos of my sister. They knew where she worked. Said they'd hurt her if I didn't cooperate. So you sold out your own people. Matteo's voice was ice. You told them where we'd be. 3 of our associates are dead because of you. And Hannah, he stopped, seeing me standing there. His expression shifted through several emotions too quickly to name. You're supposed to be at the house. The card said you'd need me here. I stepped forward, ignoring Franco's attempt to stop me. They were right, weren't they? Matteo's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he turned back to Anthony. Finish what you were saying, about your sister. The triad, they approached me 6 weeks ago, showed me pictures of Sophia leaving her apartment, her office, the gym, said it would be easy. Just tell them your schedule, where you'd be meeting. Small things. Anthony wiped blood from his face with a shaking hand. I thought I could control it, thought I could protect her. But they kept asking for more. And tonight? Franco asked from beside me. The fire? They told me to disable the alarm system, make sure the building would be empty. I thought they just wanted to destroy property. Anthony looked directly at Matteo. I swear, I didn't know they'd try to trap you inside. When I realized what they were planning, I tried to warn you. But my phone was confiscated by my men 2 hours ago when we traced the leak back to you. Matteo's tone gave nothing away. You're a traitor, Anthony. Your father served my father for 20 years. You grew up in this family, and you betrayed every single person who trusted you. The silence that followed was suffocating. I watched Matteo, trying to gauge what he'd do next. In the library last night, he'd talked about his father's rules. Never forgive betrayal. But he'd also said he was trying to be different, trying to balance justice with humanity. Your sister, I said suddenly, addressing Anthony directly. Sophia, where is she now? Anthony's eyes widened. Home, I think. They said if I cooperated tonight, they'd leave her alone. Franco, Matteo said without looking away from Anthony. Send men to Sophia Lombardi's address. Protective detail. Round the clock until this situation is resolved. Relief flooded Anthony's face, followed immediately by confusion. I don't understand. You're a traitor and a coward, Matteo said flatly. But you're a coward who loves his sister. I can work with that. He stepped closer, and Anthony pressed back against the container. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give Franco every detail about your contact with the triad. Names, locations, communication methods, everything. Then you're going to deliver a message for me. What message? That the Ricchetti family doesn't negotiate with people who threaten civilians. Matteo's voice was steel. They want war over territory? Fine. But they brought Hannah into this. They targeted your sister. That changes the rules entirely. And then? Anthony asked. After I deliver the message? Then you leave Portland. Tonight. You and Sophia both. Franco will set you up somewhere safe with enough money to start over. But you're done with this family. Done with this life. If I ever see you again. If you ever contact anyone from our organization. There won't be a second chance. Matteo paused. That's more mercy than you deserve. Take it. Anthony nodded rapidly. Something like hope flickering in his eyes. Franco pulled him away. already making calls to arrange the protective detail and extraction. The other men dispersed, leaving Mateo and me alone in the smoky warehouse. "You shouldn't have come," he said finally. "You needed someone here who'd remind you that mercy is possible." I moved closer. The cards showed me betrayal. Yes, but they also showed me choice. "You just proved you can choose differently than your father would have." "My father would have killed him." Mateo's hand came up, fingers ghosting over my cheek. Maybe he was right. Maybe mercy is weakness in this world. Or maybe mercy is the only thing that keeps you from becoming exactly like the people you're fighting against. I turned my face into his touch. Anthony made terrible choices, but he made them out of love for his sister. You understood that. You honored it. He still betrayed us. Got people killed. I know. I did know. There wasn't a simple answer here. No clear line between justice and mercy. But you also just saved 2 lives tonight. Anthony's and Sophia's. That has to count for something. Mateo studied me in the dim light filtered through smoke and shadows. "You see things in me I'm not sure actually exist. I see who you're trying to be." I touched his chest, feeling his heart beat beneath my palm. "That's more real than who you were born to be." The kiss happened like gravity, like something inevitable finally allowed to occur. His mouth on mine, careful at first, then deeper as I pressed closer. He tasted like smoke and determination. His hand steady on my waist, pulling me against him. Every nerve in my body came alive. 3 days of tension and fear and impossible connection finally finding outlet. When we broke apart, breathless, his forehead rested against mine. "We should get out of here," he murmured. "Before the fire marshal starts asking questions I can't answer." The drive back to the mansion was quiet, but it was the comfortable kind of silence. Mateo's hand found mine in the darkness, fingers lacing together. Outside the windows, Portland gave way to wilderness, city lights fading to starlight. At the mansion, we stood in the entry hall facing each other. Everything from the past 3 days hung between us. The tarot reading that had predicted this. The cafe attack that had thrown us together. The conversations in the library at 3 a.m. His mercy toward a traitor. This kiss that had changed everything. "I'm falling for you," I said. The honesty felt dangerous and necessary. "I know it's insane. I know it's been 3 days. But Lily used to say that souls recognize each other instantly. That time doesn't matter when it comes to real connection. Your sister was wise." Mateo's hand came up, cupping my face. "I told you Friday night that I already knew. When you said I'd fall in love soon, I knew you were right. Because I'd already started falling the moment you looked up from those cards. This is complicated. Yes, I'm not part of your world. Not yet." His thumb brushed across my lower lip. "But you're choosing to be. Right now. In this moment." He was right. I was choosing this. Choosing him. Choosing to believe the cards had brought us together for a reason that transcended logic and safety, and every sensible thing I'd ever believed about my own life. When we kissed again, it was different. Slower. A promise, instead of a question. And when he led me upstairs to his room, when we fell into sheets that smelled like cedar and starlight, when his hands learned my scars, and I learned the geography of his, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Later, with dawn approaching and Mateo asleep beside me, I thought about transformation, about how the tower card meant everything falling apart so something better could be built, about how the lover's card meant choice, always choice, and I'd made mine. 3 days ago, I'd been a tarot reader struggling to pay rent, living half a life in memory of my dead sister. Now I was lying in a MAFIA boss's bed, having chosen impossible love over safety, having witnessed mercy in a world built on violence, having become someone Lily would have recognized better than I recognized myself. The cards had been right about everything. Love, danger, transformation, choice. And we were only halfway through the story they'd started telling. I woke to morning sun and an empty bed. The sheets beside me still held Mateo's warmth, but he was gone. A note rested on his pillow, black ink on cream paper in handwriting that matched his personality. Precise. Controlled. Situation developed overnight. Triad retaliated against 2 of our safe houses. No casualties, but I need to handle this personally. Stay at the mansion. Franco has orders to protect you. Back by noon. M. I touched the paper, tracing the single initial at the bottom. 34 years old, and he still signed notes like a teenager trying to be mysterious. The thought made me ache with affection I had no business feeling after 4 days. 4 days. That's all it had been since Friday night's tarot reading. Less than a week. And my entire world had restructured itself around this man and his impossible life. My arm throbbed as I dressed, reminding me that yesterday's violence was still healing. The bandage needed changing. Dr. Vasquez had left supplies, and I managed it one-handed, examining the neat line of 12 stitches bisecting my forearm. Another scar for the collection. Lily would have called it a badge of survival. She'd been good at reframing trauma into triumph. God, I missed her. Missed having someone who knew me well enough to tell me when I was being stupid. And falling for a mafia boss? That definitely qualified as stupid. I found Franco in Mateo's study, surrounded by phones and laptops, coordinating what looked like a small army. He glanced up when I entered, his expression weary but alert. Morning. Coffee's in the kitchen. Mateo left instructions that you're to have whatever you need. What I need is information. I crossed to the windows overlooking the valley. The note said retaliation. How bad? 2 safe houses hit with incendiaries around 4 this morning. Buildings are total losses, but everyone got out. The triad is escalating. Franco rubbed his face, suddenly looking every one of his 42 years. Anthony's message was delivered last night. Apparently they didn't appreciate being told we won't negotiate. Guilt twisted in my stomach. This war had intensified the moment I walked into that cafe. The moment I saw those shooters' faces. I need to see Gabriella. That's not advisable. I don't care. I turned from the window, meeting Franco's eyes. She's my best friend. The only family I have left besides these cards. If the triad knows about her, if they're watching her shop, I need to see for myself that she's okay. Franco studied me for a long moment. Then he sighed. Mateo's not going to like this. Mateo isn't here. I crossed my arms, wincing as the movement pulled at my healing wound. And I'm not asking permission. I'm going. You can either arrange secure transport or I'll find my own way. You're as stubborn as he is. But Franco was already reaching for his phone. Give me 20 minutes to arrange the detail. And Hannah? If anything happens, if I tell you to move, you move. No questions. Understood? Understood. The drive back to Portland took 90 minutes, 2 SUVs bracketing the one I rode in with Franco. Morning traffic was heavy, giving me too much time to think. About Mateo's hands on my skin last night. About the choice I'd made. About what Lily would say if she could see me now. She'd probably quote some passage about following your heart off a cliff. That was Lily. All poetry and passion, while I'd been spreadsheets and caution. Until she died, and I'd learned that caution couldn't protect anyone from drunk drivers, or fate, or loss. Gabriella's shop, Crystal Visions, sat on Hawthorne in a neighborhood of vintage stores and coffee shops. Even from a block away, I could see the 2 men stationed outside, not hiding, standing visible in dark suits, arms crossed, making it very clear the shop was under protection. Your friend has been asking about you, Franco said as we parked. I told her you were safe but couldn't give details. Inside, the shop smelled like sage and patchouli, familiar and comforting. Gabriella emerged from behind a display of healing crystals, and relief flooded her face when she saw me. Hannah. She crossed the space in 3 steps, pulling me into a hug that made my arm protest. What the hell is happening? These men show up Tuesday saying you're in danger, that I need to stay inside, that I shouldn't talk to anyone I don't know. I know. I'm sorry. I held her tight with my good arm. It's complicated. Complicated? She pulled back, taking in my bandaged arm, the exhaustion that probably showed on my face. You look like you've been through a war. Something like that. I glanced at Franco, who'd positioned himself near the door, scanning the street. Can we talk in the back? Her office was cluttered with inventory and paperwork, crystals sorted by type in plastic bins. Gabriella shut the door and turned to me with an expression that demanded truth. Start talking. So I did. Not everything. Not the parts about Mateo that felt too private, too new. But the rest, the tarot reading on Friday, the cafe attack, being taken to his mansion for protection, the triad who wanted me dead for being a witness. Jesus, Hannah. Gabriella sank into her desk chair. This is insane. This is actually insane. You need to go to the police. And tell them what? That I witnessed an attempted mob hit, and now I'm hiding with the target? I shook my head. The police can't protect me from this. But Matteo can. Matteo. She said his name like it tasted wrong. The man who runs organized crime in Portland. That Matteo. It's not that simple. It never is. She stood, pacing the small office. But Hannah, you're in love with him. I can see it. 4 days, and you're already in so deep you can't see straight. Maybe. I wasn't ready to deny it. But the cards showed me this path. Lily's cards. And they haven't been wrong about anything yet. Gabriella's expression softened. She knew what those cards meant to me. Lily would want you safe. Lily would want me living. I touched my bandaged arm. Not just surviving. Actually living. Taking risks. Choosing passion over safety. That's what she always said I needed to do. Before Gabriella could respond, Franco's voice cut through the door. Hannah, we need to leave. Now. The urgency in his tone had me moving instantly. Gabriella followed as we emerged into the shop's main floor. Franco was on his phone, speaking rapid Italian, his free hand resting on something beneath his jacket. A weapon. He was reaching for a weapon. What's wrong? I asked. Possible tail spotted 2 blocks out. We're leaving. He ended his call, already moving toward the back exit. Out the rear. Move. Gabriella grabbed my good arm. Be careful. I will. I hugged her quickly. Stay inside until those men tell you it's safe. The alley behind the shop smelled like garbage and rain. Our SUV pulled up, engine running, another already positioned to follow. Franco hustled me into the back seat, sliding in beside me. Where's the third vehicle? I asked, noticing we were one short. Blocked in by traffic. They'll catch up. But Franco's expression suggested he didn't believe that. We pulled onto Hawthorne heading east, toward the freeway that would take us back to the mountains. Morning shoppers crowded the sidewalks. Cafes were full. Everything looked normal. Safe. That should have been my first warning. The black sedan appeared from a side street doing at least 60. It clipped our rear quarter panel hard, sending us spinning. I grabbed the oh shit handle, my injured arm screaming protest. Franco braced against the seat, already shouting into his phone. More vehicles. 2 more, surrounding us, cutting off escape routes. The rear window exploded. Gunfire, close and deafening. Our driver jerked the wheel, trying to break free, but we were boxed in, trapped. Get down! Franco threw himself over me, his weight crushing me into the leather seat. Glass rained down. Metal shrieked. Someone was screaming, might have been me. Then I felt Franco jerk against me. Once. Twice. The impact of bullets finding flesh. His breath hitched, sharp with pain. Franco! I tried to see his face, but he was too heavy, pinning me down. Stay down, he gasped. Blood soaked through his jacket. Dark red spreading fast. Just stay. Our driver slammed the accelerator. The SUV lurched forward, scraping against the sedan before breaking free. More gunfire followed us, bullets punching through metal, but we were moving. Away. Toward safety. How bad? I managed once we'd put distance between us and the attack. Franco had shifted slightly, allowing me to breathe. Shoulder. His face was pale, jaw locked against pain. I'll live. But blood kept spreading. Too much blood. My brain switched into the mode it had learned 3 years ago when Lily bled out in my arms while I waited for ambulances that came too late. I'd taken every first aid course available after that, learned pressure points and tourniquets, and how to keep someone conscious through shock. Driver, pull over, I commanded. We need to keep moving, Franco protested. You need to stop bleeding. I was already pulling off my sweater, leaving me in just a tank top. 30 seconds. That's all I need. The driver pulled into a grocery store parking lot. I climbed into the back with Franco, pressing my sweater against the wound in his shoulder. Entry point. No exit. The bullet was still inside. You need a hospital, I said. Can't. Gunshot wounds get reported. Franco's breathing was labored. Mateo has a doctor. Dr. Vasquez. She'll handle it. I held pressure, watching his face for signs of shock. His pupils were responsive. Pulse elevated but steady. The bleeding was slowing. After Lily died, I swore I'd never feel helpless like that again. My hands didn't shake. They'd learned steadiness from necessity. I took classes, learned how to help, how to save people when seconds matter. Good thing. Franco managed a weak smile. Mateo's going to be furious. Let him be furious. I adjusted my grip, maintaining pressure. You took bullets meant for me. Again. You and Mateo both seem determined to use your bodies as shields. Occupational hazard of caring about civilians. His eyes drifted closed briefly before forcing them open. Stay awake until we reach the mansion. Talk to me. So I did. I talked about Lily, about learning tarot from her cards, about Friday night's reading that had started all this, about falling for a man I barely knew, but somehow understood better than people I'd known for years. By the time we reached the mansion, Franco was still conscious. Dr. Vasquez met us at the door, her mobile surgical kit already open. She got Franco onto a table in a downstairs room that looked like it had been designed for exactly this purpose. Medical equipment, bright lights, everything needed for emergency treatment. You did well, she told me as she cut away Franco's jacket. Keeping him awake, maintaining pressure, probably saved his life. Mateo arrived 20 minutes later. I was sitting in the hallway outside the surgical room, still wearing only my tank top, Franco's blood drying on my hands and arms. When Mateo saw me, something in his controlled expression cracked. Hannah. He dropped to his knees in front of me, hands framing my face. Are you hurt? Franco is. He protected me. They ambushed us on Hawthorne. 3 vehicles. I think it was coordinated. The words came out mechanical. Shock finally hitting now that adrenaline had faded. Franco will be fine. Mateo's thumbs brushed my cheekbones. Dr. Vasquez is the best. But you could have been killed. But I wasn't. I covered his hands with mine, not caring about the blood. Because your people keep throwing themselves in front of bullets meant for me. Franco, you at the cafe. Everyone risking themselves for someone who isn't even part of your world. You are part of it now. His voice was fierce. Whether you chose it or not, you're in this. And that means we protect you. All of us. I looked at this man kneeling before me, this dangerous, complicated, impossibly good man who'd inherited a world of violence and was trying to navigate it with honor. And I realized Gabriella had been right. I was in love with him. Completely. Irrevocably. 4 days and a lifetime all at once. The triad isn't going to stop, I said quietly. Not until they get what they want. Then we'll have to make sure they don't get it. Mateo stood, pulling me to my feet. Come on, let's get you cleaned up. Then we plan how to end this. 4 a.m, brought Mateo home with blood seeping through his shirt and exhaustion carved into every line of his face. I met him at the door, having spent the past 3 hours unable to sleep while Franco recovered upstairs, and the mansion hummed with tense activity. You're hurt, I said, already moving toward him. It's nothing. But he swayed slightly, betraying the lie. One of his men caught his arm, steadying him. It's not nothing. I slipped under his other arm, supporting his weight. Where? Ribs. Maybe cracked. Definitely bruised. His breathing was shallow, controlled. The triad's second-in-command thought he could end this with a direct challenge. He was wrong. We made it to his bedroom, and I helped him onto the bed. His shirt was ruined, torn and blood-stained. I cut it away with scissors from the medical supplies Dr. Vasquez had left, revealing the damage beneath. Bruising spread across his left side, dark purple blooming under olive skin. When I pressed gently along his ribs, he hissed between clenched teeth. 2, maybe 3 fractured, I said. You need x-rays. Later. He caught my wrist. The triad sent a messenger after. They're demanding I meet with their leadership. Territory or blood, they said. Hand over our operations in the industrial district, or they execute me publicly as a show of power. My hand stilled on the bandage I was wrapping around his torso. What did you tell them? That I'd give them my answer by tomorrow night. His dark eyes met mine. But I'm not giving them either. There has to be another way. There is. I finished securing the bandage, my mind already working. Let me do a reading, a full spread. For the situation, not just for you. Matteo nodded, wincing as the movement pulled at his ribs. Your cards haven't been wrong yet. I retrieved Lily's deck from the nightstand where I'd left it earlier. The silk cloth felt warm under my fingers, almost alive. I spread it on the bed beside Matteo and began shuffling, letting my sister's presence guide me like she always had. What path will lead to resolution? I whispered to the cards. I laid out a Celtic cross spread, each card revealing itself with deliberate significance. The King of Swords in the present position, justice, clear thinking, and strategy. The Five of Wands reversed in the recent past, conflict that had escalated unnecessarily. The Three of Cups in the near future, alliance, celebration, unity. But it was the advice card that made me pause. The Hierophant, tradition, established power structures, mediation through respected authority. There's your answer, I said, touching the Hierophant. You need a mediator, someone both sides respect, someone who can broker peace without either of you losing face. Who? Matteo's voice was rough with pain and skepticism. The triad won't listen to anyone in my organization, and I won't trust anyone in theirs. I thought about the conversations I'd overheard over the past days, references to other families, other organizations that maintained neutrality in territorial disputes. Then I remembered something Franco had mentioned in passing. The Irish, I said. The O'Sullivan family. Franco mentioned them once. Said they maintain neutrality, that they don't take sides in wars between other organizations. Matteo's expression shifted, considering. The O'Sullivans control the docks. They have agreements with everyone because everyone needs access to shipping. They're powerful enough that no one wants to antagonize them, smart enough to stay out of conflicts that don't concern them. Would they mediate? Possibly. He sat up slowly, one hand pressed to his bandaged ribs. If we approach it correctly, if we can convince them there's benefit to brokering peace rather than letting this war escalate. A knock interrupted us. Franco stood in the doorway, his arm in a sling, face pale but determined. I heard voices. What's the plan? Hannah suggested bringing in the O'Sullivans as mediators, Matteo said. What do you think? Franco considered for a long moment. It could work. Seamus O'Sullivan is pragmatic. He won't want a full-scale war disrupting operations at the docks, and the triad uses his shipping routes too. He has leverage over both of us. Then we call a meeting, Matteo decided. Emergency council at 6. We present the option to the family leadership. If they agree, I contact Seamus this morning. By 6, the mansion's conference room was full of men who looked like they hadn't slept in days. 10 of them, ranging in age from late 20s to early 60s. Matteo's inner circle. The people who'd built and maintained his family's operations for decades. I stood near the back. Not part of the council, but not excluded either. Matteo had made it clear I was staying, that my perspective mattered. The triad has issued an ultimatum, Matteo began without preamble. Territory or my life. We have until tomorrow night to respond. I'm not giving them either. Instead, I'm proposing we bring in the O'Sullivan family as neutral mediators. Silence. Then one of the older men spoke. The O'Sullivans have never involved themselves in territorial disputes before. Why would they start now? Because this war affects their operations, Franco answered, his good hand resting on the table. Ships can't load and unload when the docks are in the middle of a firefight. The triad's expansion has already caused disruptions. They'll see the benefit in ending this before it costs them more. Another voice. Younger. And if the triad refuses mediation, then we demonstrate that we're willing to negotiate in good faith. And they're not, Matteo said. That gives us moral authority with the other families. Makes it clear who's being unreasonable. Since when do we care about moral authority? The question came from a man in his 50s, scarred and skeptical. Since we became the family that protects its people rather than just profits from them, Matteo replied. My father taught me that power without honor is tyranny. I won't become what we're fighting against. I watched the council members exchange glances. Some looked convinced, others uncertain, but no one openly opposed the plan. This was the tarot reader's idea, the skeptical man said, nodding toward me. Why should we trust cards to guide strategy? Because those cards predicted everything that's happened so far. I spoke up before Matteo could defend me. They showed betrayal from within. We found Anthony. They showed violence escalating. 3 safe houses burned. They showed a path through alliance and mediation. That's what I'm suggesting now. You don't have to believe in tarot to recognize pattern recognition when you see it. The man studied me for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. Fair point. If the cards have been right about everything else, might as well listen this time too. The vote was unanimous. Matteo would contact Seamus O'Sullivan and request mediation. If the triad agreed, they'd meet on neutral ground. If they refused, at least they'd tried the diplomatic approach first. After the meeting dispersed, I found Matteo on the terrace despite the early hour and his injuries. Dawn was breaking over the mountains, painting everything gold and amber. You should be resting, I said, joining him at the railing. So should you. He turned toward me, and in the morning light I could see how exhausted he was, how much this war had cost him. The first reading you gave me, Friday night. Do you remember what the cards showed? Love, danger, transformation, choice. I leaned against the railing beside him. All of it came true. The Lovers and the 2 of Cups. Death meaning transformation. The Tower showing destruction. Even the 7 of Swords revealing Anthony's betrayal. And the Ace of Cups as the outcome, Matteo added. New beginnings, pure emotion. That was you. Walking into my life and changing everything I thought I understood about what I wanted. I looked down at my bandaged arm, thinking about how much had changed in less than a week. Lily always said the cards don't predict fate. They show possibilities, paths we can choose if we're brave enough. Your sister was wise. She was reckless and passionate, and believed in magic even when the world gave her every reason not to. I touched the silk-wrapped deck in my pocket. I used to think I was the logical one, the practical twin. But after she died, I realized she'd been right all along. Life is too short not to choose the impossible things, the dangerous love, the transformative risk, the path that scares you most. Is that what this is for you? Matteo asked quietly. The path that scares you most? Terrifies me, I admitted. But it's also the first time since Lily died that I've felt actually alive instead of just surviving. So yes, I'm choosing it. I'm choosing you. This impossible situation. This war. All of it. His hand found mine, fingers lacing together. All those predictions from Friday's reading came true. Love, betrayal, transformation. But the outcome card, that Ace of Cups, it's not finished yet. That's still ahead of us. New beginning, I said. After all this resolves, after the triad situation ends and your people are safe again, that's when we figure out what this becomes. I already know what it becomes. His free hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. It becomes everything. You become everything. You can't know that. It's been 5 days. I knew it in 30 seconds. His voice carried absolute certainty. The moment you looked up from those cards and told me I'd fall in love soon. The moment you said it with such confidence, like you could see my entire future laid out in front of you. I knew then. I just had to wait for you to catch up. He kissed me as sunrise turned the mountains into fire, and I tasted promise on his lips. Tomorrow we'd face the O'Sullivan family and try to broker impossible peace. Tomorrow the triad would answer our request for mediation. Tomorrow everything would either fall into place or fall apart completely. But right now, in this moment, with dawn breaking and Matteo's arms around me and Lily's cards warm in my pocket, I chose to believe the Ace of Cups would prove true, that new beginnings were possible even in the middle of war, that love could survive even when logic said it shouldn't. The cards had been right about everything else. I had to trust they'd be right about this too. The warehouse on the waterfront had been chosen for its neutrality. No one's territory, no one's advantage. Just concrete floors and shipping containers, and the smell of salt water carried in from the Columbia River. Saturday afternoon, 2 in the afternoon exactly. and I stood beside Mateo wearing clothes borrowed from someone in his organization, dark gray slacks, and a forest green blouse that actually fit. Professional. Serious. Not the tarot reader in boho skirts anymore. Franco flanked Mateo's other side, his arm still in a sling but his presence deliberate, recovered enough to attend, to show the triad that their bullets hadn't broken the Ricchetti family's strength. Behind us stood 6 more of Mateo's men, silent and watchful. Across the warehouse floor, the triad Phoenix Dorada had assembled their own delegation. 8 men in sharp black suits, led by a man in his 50s with gray-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. Wei Zhang. Franco had briefed me earlier. The triad's strategist. The one who made decisions when violence alone couldn't solve problems. And between us, seated at a folding table that looked absurd in its simplicity, sat Seamus O'Sullivan and his second, a younger man named Patrick. The Irish family had agreed to mediate, but their expressions made it clear they weren't happy about being pulled into someone else's war. "Gentlemen," Seamus began, his Irish accent thick despite decades in America. "And lady." He nodded to me, surprise evident in his eyes. "We're here because your war is costing everyone money and bringing unwanted attention to operations that thrive on discretion. The docks can't function when bodies keep appearing in shipping containers." Wei Zhang spoke, his English precise. "The Ricchetti family holds territory that rightfully should be available to all organizations. Their monopoly on the industrial district prevents expansion and fair competition." "Fair competition?" Mateo repeated, his voice level. "Is that what you call attacking civilians, burning safe houses, attempting assassination in a public cafe? We would not have needed such measures if negotiation had been possible," Zhang countered. "But the Ricchetti family has refused every reasonable proposal for territory sharing. Because your proposals amount to us handing over 60 years of operations and receiving nothing in return." Franco interjected. "That's not negotiation. That's extortion." Seamus held up a hand. "We're not here to debate history. We're here to find solution. Both organizations use my family's shipping routes. Both benefit from stable operations at the docks. This war threatens that stability." He looked at Mateo. "What are you willing to compromise on?" I watched Mateo consider his response. His ribs were still taped beneath his shirt, healing from Friday night's confrontation. But his posture gave nothing away. This was the leader his father had trained him to be. Controlled. Strategic. Dangerous when necessary. "The industrial district remains ours," Mateo said. "Non-negotiable. But we're willing to discuss shared access to shipping routes and distribution networks, under proper supervision." "Whose supervision?" Zhang asked immediately. "Ours." Patrick O'Sullivan spoke for the first time. "The arrangement would be simple. Both families maintain current territories. But shipping routes, dock access, and distribution channels become shared resources managed by the O'Sullivan family. We oversee schedules, prevent conflicts, and ensure no one monopolizes access. You pay a facilitation fee. Everyone profits. Everyone stays in their lane." The silence that followed was heavy with calculation. I could see Zhang conferring quietly with his lieutenants in Mandarin. Mateo remained still, but I felt his tension through the inches of space between us. "What percentage fee?" Zhang asked finally. 15% of shipping revenue, Seamus answered. "Split between both families, with 5% to us for administration and enforcement." "That's robbery," one of the triad lieutenants objected. "That's peace," Seamus corrected coldly. "And it's cheaper than war. Count the cost of your burnt warehouses, your lost product, your dead men. Then tell me 15% isn't a bargain." More conferring, more tense silence. I found myself holding my breath, fingers wrapped around Lily's cards in my pocket. The reading this morning had shown resolution. The 3 of Cups, alliance and celebration. But cards showed possibilities, not certainties. Free will could still derail everything. "We accept," Zhang said finally. "With one condition. Any violation of the agreement by either family results in immediate loss of access to shared routes. No warnings, no second chances." "Agreed," Mateo responded. "And the attacks stop, immediately. Any retaliation against my people or my associates." His hand brushed mine briefly. voids the entire agreement and the O'Sullivan family sides with us against you. Seamus nodded slowly. That's acceptable. War is bad for everyone's business. But understand this. Both of you. The moment this arrangement becomes more trouble than it's worth, the moment your conflict threatens operations again, we withdraw entirely. And then you can tear each other apart without neutral ground to stand on. The meeting lasted another hour, working through details, shipping schedules, distribution territories, dispute resolution procedures. I watched it all, this impossible negotiation between criminals, and realized this was how peace actually worked. Not through moral righteousness or legal authority, but through pragmatic calculations of cost and benefit. When we finally emerged into autumn sunlight, Franco let out a long breath. That went better than expected. Hannah's cards predicted alliance, Matteo said quietly. They were right. Again. The cards showed possibilities, I corrected. You made the choice to pursue peace instead of war. That was you, not the cards. Over the following days, the reality of that choice became clear. Triad attacks stopped. The increased security around Gabriella's shop was gradually reduced to a single discreet presence. Franco's shoulder healed under Dr. Vasquez's care, his arm finally emerging from its sling by Tuesday. The tension that had gripped Matteo's organization since the cafe attack began to ease, and I started the careful process of returning to my life. My apartment had been maintained during my absence, Matteo having arranged for cleaning and security without asking permission. I should have been angry about the presumption, but exhaustion overrode pride. The space felt smaller after the mansion, quieter, but it was mine. Gabriella came over Wednesday night with wine and questions I mostly couldn't answer. Not yet, not fully, but I told her what I could. About choosing to stay involved, about believing Matteo was more than the life he'd inherited, about finding something worth the risk. You're in love with him, she said. Not quite a question. Yes, no point denying it. And when he inevitably has to do something terrible, something you can't justify or understand, I thought about Anthony Lombardi, about the mercy Matteo had shown despite his father's rules demanding otherwise, about the negotiation Saturday instead of the war everyone expected. Then I'll face that when it comes, I said, but I won't judge him by hypothetical darkness. I'll judge him by the choices he actually makes. Gabriella called at dusk. She'd keep the store closed until Monday. The men at the door would remain. There had been no attempts to approach. Friday night, 1 week exactly after I'd first read Matteo's cards, I reopened my booth at the night market. The owner had held my spot, having been convinced by some generous donation from an anonymous source that I deserved consideration during my family emergency. I set up the familiar table in velvet cloth, arranged Lily's cards in their silk wrapping, and waited for customers under October's cooling sky. The market buzzed with Friday energy. Vendors calling out specials, musicians playing on street corners, the smell of food trucks mixing with rain on the wind. He appeared at 10:30, exactly as the crowds began thinning. Matteo, dressed in dark jeans and a leather jacket instead of his usual suits, looking almost normal, almost like someone who belonged in this world instead of his own. "Are you reading tonight?" he asked, that hint of humor in his voice. "For the right client." I gestured to the chair across from me. "What's your question?" He sat, and the motion felt like completing a circle, like returning to the beginning, knowing how the story ended. "I want to know what you see." Same as before. I shuffled Lily's cards, feeling their weight and warmth. They practically vibrated with energy tonight, with meaning. I spread them in the same Celtic cross layout I'd used that first night. The lovers in the present position. Still. Always. The Two of Cups in the near future. The Ace of Cups as the outcome. But now, new cards appeared in the spread. The 10 of Cups. The 4 of Wands. Celebration, joy, stable foundation. The kind of future I hadn't dared imagine a week ago. "Well?" Matteo asked, watching my face instead of the cards. "You asked me once what I saw," I said, touching the 10 of Cups. "I see happiness. Real happiness. The kind that survives difficulty because it's built on truth instead of illusion." I move to the Four of Wands. I see stability, home, not just a place, but a person who becomes your foundation. And the outcome? I touch the Ace of Cups, the same card that had appeared in his first reading. New beginning, pure emotion, everything the first reading promised but couldn't deliver yet. It's here now. Ready, waiting. Matteo reached across the table, his hand covering mine on the cards. I told you I knew. That first night, I told you I already knew I'd fall in love. You did. I laced my fingers through his, but I had to catch up. Have you? Yes. The certainty in that single syllable surprised me. 1 week. 8 days since Friday night's reading. A lifetime compressed into moments of violence and choice and impossible connection. I love you. I choose this. I choose us. Whatever that becomes. He stood, circling the table to pull me to my feet. Around us, the market continued its Friday rhythm. People laughing. Vendors closing up. Musicians playing their final sets. And in the middle of it all, we stood together while October rain started to fall. The cards were right, Matteo said against my hair, about everything. Cards show possibilities. We made them real. I pulled back slightly, looking up at his face. The face I'd seen across a table 1 week ago, and somehow recognized instantly. Together. Lily's voice echoed in my memory. Time doesn't matter when souls recognize each other. Choose passion over caution. Live instead of survive. She'd been preparing me for this moment for years. Through every reading, every lesson, every shared belief in magic and fate, and the courage to follow impossible paths. Later, as we packed up my booth together, as Matteo's discreet security maintained their invisible perimeter, as Friday night gave way to Saturday morning, I thought about transformation, about how the Tower card meant destruction that cleared space for rebuilding, about how every prediction from that first reading had manifested in ways I couldn't have imagined. Love found, betrayal revealed, violence endured, choice made, and now, new beginning emerging from ashes. I was a tarot reader who'd fallen for a mafia boss, who'd witnessed murder and mediation, who'd chosen dangerous love over safe solitude, who'd learned that morality existed in shades of gray that logic couldn't navigate but instinct somehow could. And standing there in Portland rain with Lily's card safely wrapped and Matteo's hand in mine, I knew I'd choose it again. Every time. In every possible future the cards could show me. Because some loves are worth the impossibility. Some transformations require destruction first. Some beginnings only come after everything else falls apart. The cards had known all along. I'd just needed time to understand.